Alright, so I've decided I'm going to make a video for each 5-star that comes out in the English version, just explaining a little bit what they do and how good they are. I'm going to do this for all the characters that were released before now, just so I'm all caught up. So, these videos are going to be really quick, including this one, so I'm going to fly through this. Hope you're ready. First is Fiora. Fiora's a wonderful damage dealer and a great breaker, but she's a bit harsh on her SP. The 20% physical defense down on her 230 attack is pretty useful. It'll come in handy to cap defense down with like someone else, or just give it in general. She's got 20% passive physical attack up and 20% sword damage up under certain conditions, so those two things are actually really good support skills if you know how to use them correctly. She's a great warrior that can do well what you need her to do. She'll be useful for quite a while. If you got her, then lucky you. Next, Gilderoy. Gilderoy, aside from tanking, can't really do much else. He's good at breaking for thunder and giving paralysis, but all he is a tank, and he's actually really good at tanking. The defense up that he gives himself with his provoke can be capped off with a defense buff from somebody else, and he'll have really good defense, then give the enemy attack down, and Gilderoy will be taking like no damage. He's got a lot of health as well, and his healing spear attack is great for like mid-turn healing, and even in rare occasions will mean you don't even have to bring a healer to the fight. He's a great tank that you don't want to underestimate. Next we got Viola. Viola is really good. Viola is great at debuffing. She can debuff attack by a lot and by long turn counts, and she can debuff defense like crazy good. Those alone make her useful in tons of fights, and she's actually really good at just giving those debuffs. It might seem straightforward, but it is very, very useful that she has that. And then on top of that, she has a single target 3-hit dagger, or a single target or AoE 2-hit shield shaver. On top of the fact that she can debuff, and her speed, and the fact that she can break any enemy, makes it so that she's a wonderful character to have on your team. If you have her, then she is absolutely crazy good. You will find so much use out of her. Next, Theo. Theo's main draw is basically regen and his AoE 2-hit axe. He's a pretty good axe breaker and applies good regen, and the wind resistance will be very useful for certain fights. He can also clear ailments to single targets if you ever need that. Regen is basically required for endgame fights, so if you have him, he's great, but there's eventually future characters that also apply regen that just does what he can but better. Alright, Scarecrow. Scarecrow's interesting. Scarecrow has an AoE 4-hit bow, or a random target 4-hit wind. He's a great breaker. He also has 20% damage up on broken enemies and 20% damage up when critting. Although besides that, he doesn't actually have any high-power bow moves, so he's not very good at dealing damage, despite the fact that both of his support skills are damage-based. Scarecrow is alright. You won't be using him too much in the future, but for fights that are like all the enemies weak to bows, then you will definitely like to have him. Next is Millard, and honestly, Millard just kinda sucks. He's great for early and mid-game and before he gets power crept, because healing is kind of limited, and he is a wonderful healer. With his 3% damage to SP, he can constantly heal and heal everyone to max with his 20% healing up in his 5-star healing skill. And he actually pairs very well with Gilderoy for his 20% defense up, or his AoE 15% defense up for the whole party. He can also cap with Viola for physical attack down. And he has single target regen if you know the fight you're doing. He probably doesn't even have like AoE attacks very much. Your tank will, take most of the hits and regen up anyway. But besides that, in future, severely power crept and is easily one of the worst characters in the game. He's great for the first few months and then just kinda sucks. Alright, Sophia. Sophia is wonderful. She's great for early game with that 50% SP cost reduction. One of her early skills is 230 power, which is very, very high for that point in the game, so she does tons of damage. For anything ice related, you are going to be using Sophia because she can really increase your damage in anything ice. She can get 30% ice resistance down, 15% elemental defense down to cap with Viola or whoever you have giving elemental defense down, single target 3-hit ice with 420 power. Sophia is a very nice character, and in the future, you might think, oh, this Ice Scholar might just be better, but you're still going to be using Sophia because you're going to want multiple high-power ice characters, and Sophia is one of them. Instead of getting power crept, she just gets paired really well. And finally for the 8 is Lynette. Lynette is, for the first few months of the game, she's pretty good. She's got good buffs, and she can swap rows to give passive buffs and increase the turn count of something like Fiora's 20% physical attack up to make that permanent and 30%. That's kind of hard to keep up though because you have to constantly swap her back and forth. In the future, however, there's a fan that comes out that makes it so that buffs that the wearer applies last for an extra turn. So Lynette's swapping buff actually lasts for 2 turns, which makes it like way easier to swap back and forth with like Fiora's 20% passive physical attack up, make it 30%, and keep it permanent. All characters also get a special skill. Lynette's is probably the only one I'm going to mention in this video because it's just that great. The way that buffs work is that when they're applied from support skills or accessories, and then skills or NPCs, and then special skills, it all caps differently. The buff cap is 30%, and then you can get 30% from skills, you can get 30% from accessories, and you can get 30% from special skills, all separate. So the fact that Lynette can apply all 3, and the fact that she has such an easy time applying these buffs as well, makes her just such a good character. Out of the 12 or so 5 stars that's in the game right now, I easily think that Lynette is the best, and Viola is very close to her as well, by the way. Next is Tressa. Tressa competes with Gilderoy for the tank spot, but Tressa's tanking is very interesting because she dodges physical attack instead of just taking them to the face. With this, in fights where the enemy doesn't hit too often, Tressa wins because she can just dodge all the attacks. But in fights where the enemy swings over and over and over again, then Tressa is actually not as good a tank as Gilderoy. But she's actually pretty good at dealing spear damage, she's nice at breaking, and she's got great utility. She's also a wonderful tank in most fights that you will choose over Gilderoy if you know how to keep it up. So, I would say Tressa and Gilderoy, they're both great options. You can't go wrong with one or the other. Next is Heathcote. Heathcote, in the first few months of the game, is an amazing character. He can single target 3-hit shield shave, which makes him great in any battle. He has a priority dagger, which makes it so that he can actually guarantee the highest XP in the game. And is a thief, so he's got high speed, so he can be the first to break and let all the other characters attack. But later on in the game he gets severely power crept. He's not doing too hot in the Japanese version right now. Primrose, I'm actually recording this after recording everything else because I forgot her. Primrose is a wonderful character, you actually can't go wrong with her. She's great at both buffing and debuffing. She's a wonderful dark breaker, and if you're going to use her to buff and it just happens to be a fan fight, then you can also use her to break. She can buff attack, she can give defense down, she can give dark resistance down. The thing that keeps her from being so great compared to Lynette though is the fact that she can only apply skill buffs. Lynette can apply special skill and passive buffs, while Primrose can only do skill buffs. That's fine for now. Lynette eventually becomes the better dancer if you ask me, but Primrose is a great character. Anything dark related, you are not going to be sorry to have her. She's a wonderful character. Now we've got Therese. Therese is honestly not that great, sadly. She's got Tonitrus Canaire, which is an AoE 3-hit, but it's actually a weak version compared to basically all the other sorcerer skills that come out in the future. She's got no high power skill, and she's got no easy way to apply thunder resistance down. Look at Sophia, who's got a high power skill, a good second support skill which halves her SP. She's got lots of very easy ways to apply tons of debuffs. And then you look at Therese, and all she has is Tonitrus Canaire. Therese is sadly just not very good. Another shame, because her and Heathcote I liked very much in the first game. And lastly we got Corrin. Corrin is actually a great warrior. He's got a random target 4-hit, and a 1-hit 450 or 500 power sword attack. That gets 20% power up when the enemy hasn't acted yet. That also takes place when the enemy's broken. He has no AoE sword skills and actually no sword damage up, which basically in the end makes him like on par with Fiora if you ask me. He's got a really high power skill, and he's better at breaking, but he has no AoE skills, or he only has a single target 2-hit sword, or he can't apply defense down. But regardless, if you have Fiora and Corrin, you're going to be using both of them in sword fights until you have like a lot more warriors. Right now, I think Corrin is on par with Fiora, and they're both very good. Alright, that was the quick flash news thing about all the 5 stars in the game. Here is actually a quick little tier list on how I think the characters are in the English version and the Japanese version. I'd also like to mention real quick, by no means do you need any of the strong characters in the game to beat any of the hard content in the game. Skill carries you a long way in this game, and if you know what you're doing and you have the patience, you'll be able to do a lot that you didn't think you would be able to do before. Make sure you take advantage of your 4 stars, and don't worry about having the best of the best. Trust me, I'm lacking lots of the super amazing characters in the Japanese version, and I'm still doing very well on the content in the game. I've seen a lot of people thinking that they need the top characters in the game to be able to do anything. I don't know if that mindset comes from other gacha games, but you do not need the best of the best characters to clear all the content in the game. I hope this video helps you decide who you want to get, and I will try to do one of these for each new character in the future. It might not be out like immediately, it could take a few days or whatever else, I don't know. Regardless, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you in the next video.
一旦
着レンジ
怪人と化せ
譲ろう
力を届けます。コラプスやったー。お任せします。
我らに命のあ